Hello, Faith Christian Center, and welcome to our Monday edition of this fireside chat. This is my day off, so I'm sitting out on my deck this morning as I record this in my sweatshirt and just wanted to spend a few minutes with you. We've been talking about the difference between walking by faith, volition, and presumption. But with the events that are going on in the country right now, and especially as this continues to just increase, and the tension and the anger and the violence increase, I want to speak to it at least briefly today. I plan on this coming Sunday to devote my whole message to this and how to look at this situation as a Christian and how to respond as a Christian. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. Is so often what happens. First of all, as I mentioned briefly yesterday, these things, although there's real issues involved, and I'm not in any way diminishing that, and I will address that later on. But we can't get to the real issues if we're reacting, if we're in violence and we're reacting to one another. If you've been married very long and you've had disagreements with your spouse, you understand that as long as you're reacting to each other, you can't hear each other. And in order to be able to get through all of this, in order to be able to know what to do, we have to be able to listen and listen with our hearts. And that's not going to happen as long as we're angry and as long as we're reacting. And there's a type of anger that is justified, but the way that it's handled and the way that it's expressed is not. And ultimately we have to see is what is behind all of this, the issues that are involved, as well as the violence and the conflict, is this is obviously Satan involved in that. And Satan's a bully. He tries to sucker punch you and hit you so that you'll strike back and react. And when we do, we always fall into his hands. And the biggest concern I have is for the church, because this can become divisive to a church. And we have to understand that in a church of our size and our diversity, there are going to be many different viewpoints of ways of looking at these things. And that's okay. It's whether we allow those things to pull us apart. And secondly, ultimately, it's whether we're looking to find out what the truth and what Christ would have us do. Because if we're not willing to look for the truth and look for what Christ and God would have us do, then we're never going to come together. We're always going to be in a conflict. We'll always disagree. And here's the problem. You find it in a marriage. I see things one way, Anita sees things a different way. Until I'm willing to quiet down and not defend myself, but listen to her and respond to her, the two of us can never find out what the truth is. But ultimately, if we want to find the truth, we can communicate and get there. But if all we want to do is argue and defend ourselves, we'll never get to the truth. It will never produce anything good. And we'll just end up with deeper and deeper strife. And that's what has pulled so many marriages apart. And that has the potential to pull the church apart and pull our church apart. But I will do everything in my power to make sure that does not happen. It's more challenging in this time where we can't all come together just yet. And although we are going to come together on Sunday, I'm not by any means expecting everybody to be there. And certainly we're not allowed to have everybody there. So I just want to try to speak a voice of reason into this. I'm not saying who's right or wrong. We'll talk about that on Sunday. But I just want to encourage you not to react to everything you see in the news, not to react to everything you hear. The things you see and hear in the news are filtered, and I'm not saying biased, they may be, but they're filtered through the eye of the person that's reporting it. There's no way that in 15 or 20 minutes you can see the entire spectrum and know who's in a riot, who's behind the riot. You can't know all of those things. But when we hear sound bites and see short clips, those things create an effect in our minds, and then we react to that. An example of that, going back to the coronavirus, is I kept seeing pictures of these patients being wheeled into emergency rooms in a plastic bubble, and the people bringing them in are basically in plastic bubbles, and then next to that is the death rate. And that engenders fear, but that's not the whole picture. There were many people in that hospital with it that were not in that condition, and there are far more people who had been affected by the disease that weren't in the hospital, and there were even far more than people that haven't even been infected by that. But that one news clip, that little insight, blows it up in our mind and our imagination, and that's what fuels this conflict. Again, I'm not saying there's not real issues here. There are, and I will talk about those on Sunday, but we'll never get to real issues. We'll never get to change if we don't stop reacting to what we see on television and hear in the news and on our computers. We have to not react. As Christians, we've got to learn to look at these things through the Word and look at these things through the Holy Spirit. We're subject to Him more than anything else. And so I want to help us learn how to do that. And it takes disciplining our flesh, it takes disciplining our mind. And this is a wonderful opportunity to learn how to do that. And either we'll use this as an opportunity to do this and grow, or we're going to let the devil in and tear everything up that God's intending to do here. And we cannot let that happen. There's too much at stake, far beyond even the issues that are going on right now. Because what's at stake, what's really at stake here, is the eternal destiny of souls. And I'm not in any way belittling people that have died, people that are suffering. I'm not belittling that in any way. But the ultimate perspective is there are literally millions of souls at stake in us doing what we're here to do. And so we'll talk more about this as we go on, but I want to really encourage you to watch on Sunday. God is putting some insights into my heart, things to share with the church, so we'll know how we should respond and how we can respond. And God's grace will be in that. God's grace is not in our reacting in anger or reacting in strife. All we're doing is fueling what Satan wants to do here. And we've got to be mature enough not to let him do that. So, God bless you. We'll probably talk a little bit more about this as we go on in the week. We'll just have to see how God is leading us. So, have a blessed, wonderful day. Remember, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. God bless you.